Welcome to Unraveling Midlife. I'm your host, Sarah Spence. Thanks for joining me as I explore my own astrological midlife by speaking with inspiring people about theirs. If you're new to the show, welcome. So the definition of midlife I'm using isn't what some might think. For example, a friend of mine recently said, "It's not all about menopause, is it?" No. Rather, it relates to Western astrology transits that run from the mid-30s to the mid-40s for everyone of all genders. These have an overall theme, though details vary by generation and also by person. I'm right in the middle of the four main midlife transits and learning lots along the way, especially from my guests on the show. Along with my passion for astrology, I'm also a musician, and you'll find a song that relates from me at the end of the interview. Today's guest is completely in keeping with the Aquarian new moon on which this show drops. Aquarius is about the future and the unusual, and what we talk about fits right into this theme. Add in a guest with an Aquarian moon and me with an Aquarian sun, amongst other planets, and it's perfect timing. Macdonald of Expansion Healing specialises in helping people slow down and listen to their bodies. I've mentioned the self-healing Dalian Method on the show before, and Megan is the person who introduced it to me. It's a complete game changer for life, and I often wish I'd followed up on it sooner, but as before, everything in its perfect time. In our discussion today, we cover the two main modalities that Megan uses to help people, including the Dalian Method and what it is. The other modality is an ancient Ayurvedic practice called Shivambhu, renowned for its healing properties. One bonus going for Shivambhu: it's free and unlimited in availability nearly 100% of the time. Listen on to find out more. And, spoiler alert, this happens to be one of the few episodes where menopause is actually mentioned. Briefly. Megan, thanks so much for joining me on Unraveling Midlife.
Always love talking to you, and it's especially fun to talk to someone on the other side of the world.
Of course, because you're way over, almost kind of on the other side of the world. Strictly speaking, I think Spain is the furthest from New Zealand, but PEI
Okay.
isn't really that far from Spain.
No, we're just on the little hop over the ocean.
Yeah, Prince Edward Island on that east coast of Canada, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I know that you do an amazing array of very interesting things. So tell us a bit about yourself.
So I work holistically with people, and the sort of things I do, I like to describe as the fast stuff. So if you've been stuck, if you've tried a lot of self-help, if you've worked with a lot of other people, if there's something that you just can't shift and you've done all the things, I'm the sort of person you come to work with. And I use a couple of different methods, and we can get into those in a bit. But it comes from a background in yoga and Reiki and oracle cards, and being very interested in my own health because I had a lot of body pain when I was 16. Really, it started with low back pain, and that got me going, trying for physiotherapy and massage, which were really normal in Western society, and then going into acupuncture and Reiki and osteopathy and craniosacral therapy. And it just went on. Like anything that I could find, I would try it. And I was always trying to get rid of the pain. Yoga and Pilates were helpful, and I trained in yoga so I could keep helping myself. But it wasn't till later when I discovered some things that were permanent, that would work permanently on my body. The things I did before that included growing up in tourism, so I'm really comfortable talking in front of people, and I love talking about where I'm from because it's a very touristy place. And then I studied theater, and I did a master's degree and a PhD, and I looked at how people perform belief. And so very much from the holistic side, my interest has always been with what do people believe and what do they do with their bodies because of their beliefs. And that leads us into then what do people then not realize they're believing that's keeping them stuck. So that's sort of how I ended up there. And then I spent a little bit of time in the middle there too, like working for the Canadian government, doing high level events. So things like royal visits and state funerals and national parties and things like that. So it's a little bit of governmental theater on the side. And I lived away from where I'm from for 17 years in England, in Germany, in Ottawa. And then I ended up back here and on this little island in Eastern Canada, which is beautiful, but also, so it's just such a small place compared with when you've lived in places like London or in Germany, which is so dense. So
very true. And just for listeners that haven't heard of Prince Edward Island, just think of Green Gables.
Yeah. And beaches, just beaches and with nobody on them. And the water's warm enough to go swimming.
Yes, but we've got a lot of those in New Zealand, so that's not going to impress any New Zealand listeners or Australian for that matter.
Yeah. So now I see how it's all connected. You know, when you look back and you go, oh, okay, each step brought me further along. But as I was doing it, I had no plan. And I just kept walking through the doors that opened. And it built a set of knowledge and skills and interests that keep bringing me back to belief and how do I communicate it, work with it, talk about it, and now help people in their lives with it.
And so that's your background. I mean, a lot of us, I know I started with, I think I did Reiki before yoga and Oracle cards probably before that. I think a lot of us started on our paths with those kind of things. Where are you now? What are you doing?
So at the moment, there's two methods that I'm the most excited about. One is called the Dalian Method, and it is a self-healing method. And that's part of what I want to teach people now too, is self-healing things. So that once I get you started, you're good to go. There might be like, you have to buy a Dalian kit, for example, but then you don't need me anymore. You can do your own work. And the Dalian Method really helps people go into the unconscious to find the patterns that come out of repressed thoughts, beliefs, and emotions that are still stuck in the system. Our cellular memory holds everything. And so if someone comes to me and says, I've had this hip pain forever, or they come to me and say, I can't stop being triggered emotionally by this member of my family. Every time I talk to them, it just spirals. Or they say, I'm so stuck in my life. I know I want to do these things, but I can't make any forward progress. It's always the thing where they're like, I've done everything. I know this pattern really well and I can't shift it. And the Dalian Method, in its self-help way, even though I teach people how to do it and I facilitate them, and when they're starting, it starts to unlock and sort of bypass the mind. So people start to actually see the emotions coming up in their body. They feel these things that are coming up from the depths and they're able to articulate it. And in the articulation of it, and a specific breathing, they end up letting it go. So it transforms, the energy leaves. Everyone says when they leave, I feel lighter. And they're not, it is an actual lighter person because the things that have left them are gone. And I hear the most amazing things from people afterwards. So somebody who'd had depression since they said 10, and they were almost 50. And they'd done the yoga and the meditation and the cannabis and other recreational drugs. And they tried camping and they were like music and all these different things over the years and using some medication for depression. 6 months after the first session, they said, I really feel different. Something shifted. And they came back for a second session. And after 2 sessions, they said they went through an entire winter and said they didn't get depressed. They had a few days where they were sad, but the depression didn't come in. That was the first time they hadn't had depression in the winter since they were a child.
And that's a long winter compared with what we have where I
live.
We're
talking 6 months. Yeah. And it's very cold and dark. And other people who've come in and they've done one session and reported back that they behaved differently in their next business meeting. Like they just noticed they stepped up, they asked the question, they didn't hesitate. Whatever it was had been holding them back before, it was gone. Whether it's physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual, the Dalian Method will work with it. And it transforms it because the person does the work themselves. And so it's there. It always does the thing. The other method I'm working with, interestingly, is very similar in some ways, but it sounds really different. So bear with me here. It's urine therapy.
Say it again. Say it again in case they didn't hear it properly.
So it's urine therapy in English, but Shivambhu in the Sanskrit. And Shivambhu is the mother of Ayurveda. So Shiva, Lord Shiva, one of the main three gods in many of the Indian traditions and religions. And the word ambu, and ambu is actually the Ayurvedic word for the fluid, like the waters of the body, and the waters of the body are not just water in that sense or urine, but also it's sort of a word that there's ambu and then there's also rasa, and rasa is tissues, but tissues include plasma and blood, for example. But so Shivambhu in this case is Shiva and waters of the body, but Shiva and water. And if you think of what that means, if you put those together, it's holy water, divine water, water of the gods.
Now, I've heard Shiva translated as consciousness, which is what I say when I'm running a kirtan.
Mm-hmm.
So consciousness water.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the consciousness of existence as well. This is your consciousness, the consciousness of creation, because it created you. But it's that idea of, it's an elevated word. Like to put Shiva on something in Ayurvedic tradition is to elevate it. You don't throw that word around. It's not on every other part of the body. It's only used to describe urine.
Wow.
And so the immediate reaction in our cultures is disgust. But I'm just going to throw this out there. Disgust is learned. It's not an automatic. No baby is disgusted by anything. They love their poop. They love their pee. They love dogs' mouths. They'll touch anything. So we teach them what to be disgusted by. And we were taught what to be disgusted by. So disgust can be unlearned. That's not that hard, actually. And every single baby in the womb grew in an amniotic sac that, as soon as there was a sac, the mother's urine starts going into it. The urine starts going in, which means the urine is essential to life. Nothing in the human system is by accident. Doctors go on and on about how perfect the human body is and how the brain is this amazing thing that they don't even understand how it works. And the liver, they don't understand how it works. And it's just this, there's only a few things we can replicate, with machines like dialysis or a heart monitor, things like that. But if you lose your liver, you're done. We can't help you. It's too complex, right? If urine were at all dirty, toxic, or problematic to human bodies or evolution, we would not swim in it as babies in the womb. It just wouldn't be there. So first the mother's urine goes into the womb, and then when the baby has a urethra, the baby's urine goes into the womb. So
the
really,
mother's urine goes into the womb.
Yes.
Huh.
So we're in our own urine from somewhere around month 2 or 3. So we're in there for 6 months, 6 to 7 months, we're in our own urine, and it's in our nose and our eyes and our mouth and our lungs. Like we're breathing it as if we're a fish as part of the amniotic fluid. There's other things in there too. But again, just back to this point of, if it was dangerous or toxic in any way, it wouldn't be there. Because that's not how the body's designed. It is perfect in its design. So for any of your listeners who are like, this is really weird, I'll throw out there, I've been doing this for 9 years. My yoga teacher taught me in 2013, and she had been doing it for 30 years. Her skin was stunning. Her hair was beautiful. Her body was amazing for someone who was 52 years old. And she had been to a clinic in Vancouver, and she had gone, it was for menopausal women. And this is one of the stories that convinced me this would be worth trying. A lot of people she knew had said, go to this clinic, you're the right age. So she went to the clinic and they ran the test. It was like $200. And at the end, they said, we'd like to run the test again. We think we got really weird results for you. She said, fine, go ahead, run it again. So they ran it again. And then they came back and they said, we got the same results. What are you not telling us? And she said, do you have an open mind? The doctor's like, okay, fine. What do you got for me? So she said, I've been drinking my own urine for 30 years. And the doctor understood immediately and said to her, oh, you've been doing hormone replacement therapy on yourself. Now your results make sense.
Oh.
So she wasn't deficient in the hormones she was supposed to be deficient in. She didn't have excess of something that other people have an excess of. Her hormones were down the line normal for someone who wasn't menopausal. So she had everything was lined up. And I think she also mentioned things like osteoporosis, like her bones were fine. Like all the things that you're supposed to report within the realm of menopause, she didn't have them. She never had hot flashes, for example.
Could be a
So
bit of envy going on.
yeah, quite a bit of empty going on. So that was one of the reasons that I listened to what she was saying. But also when she said, if you want to try it, she said, put a few drops on the back of one hand every time you pee for a couple of days. And if you need to rinse it off with water after because it feels weird, fine, but just don't use soap because the urea in the urine is very, very moisturizing. So that's what you want to get. You want the moisturizing. I had very dry skin. So I put it on the back of one hand for 3 days, the back of my left hand. And after 3 days, I couldn't deny what I was seeing. The back of my left hand was supple and soft, and the color was better and more even. Like everything about that hand was different than the right hand. So I started, when I went to the bathroom, I'd catch a couple drops and I'd rub them on my hands. And within a few days, my hands were beautiful and I didn't need any hand cream. And then I've always had dry skin on my face. And so purely vanity, I thought, well, what if I put on my face? And so then I would rub my hands and just rub my face.
Did it work on like smile lines and stuff?
So it depends. Yes.
Personally, I'm interested.
So I do find that, when I smile really deeply, I've still got fine lines. I mean, I'm still in my 40s, but when my face is relaxed, you don't see the creases. You don't see anything there. So I don't know. I mean, in general, people are generally very surprised at how old I am, but it's hard to tell. That's a very subjective thing. I do know that my hands look radically different than the other women my age. Generally, when they look at the backs of my hands, they often comment. So that's how I got started. It was purely just because my yoga teacher had been doing it for 30 years and she mentioned it, and I tried it on my hands. And once I tried it on my hands, there was no going back. And then I just started using it more and more. It's like once you break that open, your intuition takes over. And the thing that starts to happen too is it's like you rewild yourself. So you may have heard of all these different wild habits, like the cold showers and doing specific Wim Hof breathing and eating different plants from your own yard. So being able to eat thistle or eat different flowers or use them for teas, so that you, in a way, that's becoming more like our ancestors. It's being more wild to what is going on the earth. And urine is the ultimate wild habit. It's free. You produce it all day. It's yours. And it's designed for you by your body for you. We've been told it's waste. Tons of books on this. We can put a link in the description if your viewers or listeners want to look up some of the books, because it would take the whole time for me just to describe all the reasons why it's not waste. But we'll also put it this way. I've been drinking it for 9 years. So you can use it on the outside of your body, or you can drink it as well and do other things with it too. And there's fresh and then there's aged. That's a whole other topic. But actually cleaning out your sinuses, it's one of the most amazing things. And I've been working with people now really intensively since last May. And every week somebody writes in and says, I used urine in my sinuses. It cleaned them right out. I thought I could smell before. Wow, is this a game changer? And that is one of the big things that happens every week.
Right. Yeah. I knew a group of people using, they call it Amaroli, and use it as neti to clean through the sinuses. But you had to have a specific kind of diet or it was just not great.
So that's another thing that I always come back and say, it doesn't matter. Doesn't make any difference. You can do anything with your urine at any stage in your health. And it is more pleasant when you have a clean diet, but you can't hurt yourself by using it if you don't have a clean diet. So some of the most interesting cases are from a book called The Water of Life by John Armstrong that was written in the 1940s. He cured his own tuberculosis. And after that happened, people looked at him and went, what did you do? Because they realized he was close to death and he brought himself back. And so then people would send their friends to him when the doctors would say, you have cancer, we can't help you, go home and die. And they would say, well, I have this friend named John Armstrong, maybe he could help you. And so he kept case notes over 30 years, it sounds like. from all these different people. And that book is quite amazing. You can get a free PDF online. It's not the greatest quality PDF, but it's free. If you want to buy the book, it's not expensive. But the water of life, he describes things where gangrene is cured and parts of the limbs or the fingers actually grow back. People who they have stage 4 cancer. And within a month, he's turned them around and they live another 20 years. And when they go back to their doctor, the doctor says, well, it must not have been cancer then. We must have been wrong because urine wouldn't do that.
Well, what's exciting about this is that it's not a kind of a medication or solution that they, quote unquote, can suppress because we make it ourselves.
Yes, exactly. And so this brings me back, like, this is why I'm so excited about it. I've been doing it for 9 years. Until this past year, I was only really talking to my friends about it. But I ended up joining a community so that I could actually help launch my business. So I'd learn more about marketing for wellness professionals, marketing and sales, and how to run your whole business. And I told them what I was doing, and this whole community jumped on board. And so it's called Yoga Healer, and Kate Stillman, it's her business. She has an Ayurvedic background, so she understood the benefit of this right away, even though she wasn't doing it at the time. And then her whole community of people who know her trusted her and listened to what I was saying, and they started experimenting. So Kate actually has a bunch of video interviews now with me and with other people on her YouTube page about urine. And she's talking to all sorts of experts about all aspects that feed into this: your microbiome, your oralome, which is the microbiome in your mouth, the microbiome on your skin, that urine is anti-inflammatory, that it's good for oxidative stress, especially the aged urine. It's so incredibly powerful that it can significantly reduce oxidative stress and inflammation in a person's body in a matter of weeks. And these are things that medical science is trying to do over time, and they only succeed occasionally, whereas because they're using the same products on all different people, and everybody's body is different. And then we come back to the fact that the urine that you are making for you is designed by your body for you to help you in that moment with whatever you need. And it works physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It is a spiritual practice. It's like plant medicine in that sense for people who want to compare it, except for it's not even from a plant that's outside of you, it's from you. Every other thing that you have ever put in your mouth was created externally to you. Your urine is something that was created internally. So your body recognizes it immediately. It understands what to do with it. It doesn't have to reprocess it before it understands where it can go and how it can be useful. So the feedback loop is phenomenal. And people often say they start drinking it and they say that they feel smarter. It's like little lights go off. Consciousness, if we go back to the idea of Shiva and consciousness, they put more consciousness in their bodies and then they become more conscious. It's that easy.
Given this podcast will be pushed out on the Aquarius new moon, which is for us in Aotearoa, that's when our kind of school year and everything starts going again. Feeling smarter, I mean, that could be really good timing. So how would you suggest, if someone wanted to get started, what do they do? Because surely there's a few tips and tricks or some kind of protocol.
So the basics, again, are in a lot of different books. And again, we can have some links for that. But if you're just listening and you haven't looked at anything else, I generally say, some people say they can drink it right away, no problem, but they don't want to put it on their body. Other people say, I don't want to drink it, but I'll put it on my body. So find which side of that you're on. If you're willing to drink it or put it in your mouth, take a drop on your finger and just put it under your tongue, like you would with homeopathy. And do that for 3 days in a row. And if that's okay, then put 2 drops. And if that's okay, then put a teaspoon and hold it under your tongue. Let it get into your bloodstream. Your urine is, because I just said blood, it reminded me. What actually happens is the blood goes through the kidneys filter the blood. The resulting liquid from the kidneys filtering the blood is the urine. So another name for urine is blood plasma ultrafiltrate. So your urine is a direct example of the state of your blood. If your blood is sticky and smelly and stinky, then your urine will be sticky and smelly and stinky. If your blood is really clear and clean, your urine will be. It's a direct reflection of you in each moment. So it is sterile. Urine is sterile, antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, antispasmodic. I can go on and on about all the things that it does, but those are just some to begin with. And your urine is not designed to hurt you, but I always say start slow. Start slow. A drop under the tongue, a couple drops in the back of one hand every day for a week or 3 days, or a couple drops on your foot or your leg, whatever part of your body you're comfortable trying it on. And as I said, just don't use soap right away because you want the urea. Every expensive face cream on the market has urea in it. Urea is the main component after water. It's urea in your urine. And urea is incredibly moisturizing. If you think about what a baby's skin is like when they come out of the womb, that's part of what's happening.
Just for clarity, are you saying don't wash your hands with soap, wash them with urine, or wash your hands with soap and then moisturize with your urine?
If you're putting urine on your hands, don't wash with soap afterwards.
Oh, afterwards. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. You can wash your hands for whatever reason you need to wash your hands, but just if you're going to try to figure out if it's going to help your skin, don't wash it after you put it on. So in that sense, sometimes,
common sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So, also because today, depending on what we're doing, we're being asked to wash our hands a lot more. You might find it easier to stick a little bit of urine on your arm or on your leg because you're not going to wash it as much. So if you want to see if there's a difference to your skin or if your skin likes it, maybe pick a spot that you're not going to wash 18 times a day. If you're somebody who's washing their hands a lot because they're out in public and they're being asked to.
Man, I just had some sunburn because it's been the summer holidays. I wish I'd talked to you before my summer holiday.
Yeah, actually, that's one of the best things for it. That's how I really discovered it was working. I was in Israel and with this teacher, and I thought, well, this will work. So I just soaked a piece, like a face cloth or a piece of flannel. You could do paper towel, and I put it on one shoulder while I read a book, and I put on the other shoulder that was sunburned while I read the book. Did that 3 days in a row. Sunburn was gone. No itching, no pulling, no scaling, no heat. It just sucked the heat right out of the burn.
Thought about, because I knew that we had this session set up, and yesterday I had a small encounter with a wasp. It was hanging out on my radish flowers that had gone to seed. And I didn't see it when I was leaning over to pick some parsley, and I felt the sting, and I was like, what should I do? And I was like, do I pee on it? Is that just jellyfish?
Yes.
Don't know. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think I only touched it, like it didn't actually sting me, so it's okay.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah. But no, anything on the skin. It's absolutely amazing. So I consult now with people. I run a urine therapy course that's 6 weeks. I do consultations with people, and I'll be running a year-long course where I bring everything together, where it's the habits from Ayurveda and yoga about how to really thrive and be well in your body. And then which are also all self habits. Like you just have to learn them and then they're yours. And some people do some of them already, but these 10 habits are really, really strong. And I do them all, and I can absolutely attest to they got me through 2020. And then on top of that, the urine therapy and the Dalian method. And so I bring all of this together into a year-long course. And that's what I do when I work with people.
I think I'm going to have to do like another podcast episode on the Dalian method because,
yes,
as you know, I've been doing facilitator training. I haven't talked about it a lot on the show, but I am planning on mentioning it a bit more.
Absolutely.
And talking more because I feel like it needs its own. This urine therapy is just, I don't know anyone else that does this kind of thing, so I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
That's really exciting that you've got a course coming up that's going to be combining that. Like, absolutely. What time of the year do you start year-long courses? Because here we usually start them in like January or usually February. Like, how does your year work there?
Right. Well, in this case, once I get it going, I'm going to do an intake like 3 times a year.
Oh, great. Cool.
So and then people can just keep rolling through. This particular one, I think I'm going to end up starting it in like April or May or June, something like that. But then there'll be like the next intake would probably be in our fall, your spring, and then the next intake would probably be next January. So there would always be a join us moment through it. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And I mean, the Unraveling Midlife is around midlife, like with the dates of your midlife. When I dug into them, and I know how much older than me you are, and so they all kind of worked out. I found it interesting that your like specific midlife transits that we do cover in episode 8, we're all quite they were all quite like, here was one and then another, and there wasn't much overlap, which was quite cool. So you're towards the end of these classic transits. In fact, in about 3 months time, you'll be through midlife. Congratulations. And it's typically, from everyone else I've talked to, it's typically a time where focus really changes. And so for you, like, I was in Prince Edward Island, and we even collabed with Yoga and Music a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago. And you were just starting the Uranus opposition, which is the big shakeup that we also talk about, not just with Western astrological transits in episode 8, but also with human design in episode 9, just in case listeners, you haven't listened to those. They're actually really awesome episodes. So how was, I mean, you're coming out of it, but I sent you the dates so you could have a look. Did your life like completely kind of switch around during astrological midlife for you?
So yeah, it's interesting looking at them. The first one, well, okay, I mean, the first one on there is back in like the Saturn return at 28. So like we'll leave that aside for a moment. I was in the middle of doing a PhD, and I continue to do a PhD. But with the February to June 2012, they said there's a wee taster that I got. Like I got a few months before the Pluto.
That was your Pluto square, and it was quite early for you. Like it was quite, like, I didn't have mine until I was 37, but yours was quite
34,
a bit early, because planets, they have kind of erratic orbits, especially Pluto.
Yeah. And so interestingly, between February and June of 2012, I've been working for the federal government, and they decided to lay off 18,000 public servants. And
That's
so that
lot.
was when it was a huge cull. Now, most of them got rehired when the next government came around, and they realized that they couldn't pay all these people to be consultants. But I was working for the government at that time, but I knew I was going to leave anyway. So I was like, great, lay me off, give me a package. And part of that package was for education. And I ended up being able to use that money to pay for yoga teacher training. Nice. So when the next piece of that Pluto square comes around, December 2012, I packed up my whole life to leave Ottawa and shipped almost everything out west, because I decided I was going to do yoga teacher training in Vancouver. And so in January, February of 2013, I did my yoga teacher training with the woman who taught me about urine therapy. And I did my first session with Dalian, who then developed and published a book and a set on the Dalian Method. And I had my first astrological chart reading by Mada's book editor. And so, they say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And my biggest teachers, urine therapy and Mada Dalian, both came into my life in the same month.
So Pluto square, but I mean, look at all those blessings that happen when things that can initially be quite a shock, hey?
Yeah. But for me, in that sense, it's interesting. Even with that, I mean, I got laid off, but I loved it. I love traveling. So I'm like, great, I'm going to go traveling. And I threw myself into going, I don't know what's going to happen next. And that whole year, 2013, I only had things planned out a few months ahead of me. I only knew what I was doing for the next couple of months, and then the next thing would open, and then the next thing would open. And I spent a whole year traveling and learning. I did a postdoc. I did in British Columbia. And then I did another level of teacher training in Israel, taught some university courses in Germany, and then made my way back to Canada at the end of that year. So 2013 was this amazing year for me. And all the way,
What's a postdoc?
A postdoctoral position. So when you finished your PhD. Yeah. So I did what was it, 4-month postdoc? So research.
I didn't realize that they were so short.
They can be longer, but this was just at the University of Victoria in BC. So they had a position that was that length, and that worked for me. So I came in and did it and kept going. So that all happened in that same time. Now, after that, I'm just looking like in terms of Pluto went till 2015. And all the way through that, I ended up back in Prince Edward Island, and I did a lot of house sitting and like moving around, and things were very ungrounded in many ways, but I had a steady job again. And I was enjoying being here. It's the Neptune, you put like loss and surrender.
You can get
next
quite
to that
foggy
one.
on a spiritual level, especially at the beginning of that transit.
Interesting. So it's so in 2016, it's not the first, well, actually, it's not even when any of those were really active, because in November of 2016, which isn't one of the dates that's encompassed in there, that's when my mother was diagnosed with cancer. But
probably other things happening in your chart.
yeah. But that whole period, like that lead up, was definitely part of that energy. And from 2017 through 2018, actually all the way through to now, in so many ways, like my mother got cancer and she's had 3 rounds of treatments and she's now in recovery again. But my parents ended up selling their business, the house I grew up in, changing their identities completely. And I was part of like helping them pack up and move into a new house and do all these things. So it says like sort of in a spiritual fog. I'd have to go back and look a little bit more, but I was working with Dalian at that point, and I don't think I've ever felt like I've fully been in the spiritual fog since I worked with her.
So the antidote to Neptune square is the Dalian method.
Yes, absolutely. It, in that sense, I mean, I was working with her every year and getting great guidance about what I should be doing with my life.
Yeah, I mean, I started with her probably towards the beginning of my Neptune square.
Yeah.
But not really getting into it until probably midway through. So yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah. And having a good astrological reading once a year to say, here's what you should be looking for. Here are some patterns that are coming up. So then it also doesn't feel like it's craziness coming at you. You sort of go, you know.
It's quite incredible how the astro transits, yeah, I definitely experienced that in through the midlife transits, but other like more specific ones for me, like very much even starting to feel them more intensely of, oh, that was 3 months worth of, and I look back and see what happened in life. And it was like, oh my God, I felt like I didn't have a choice in this particular action. And then when the transit kind of came out, it was like, oh no, that 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 doesn't matter anymore. I went from being switched on about something to being completely and utterly switched off. Or it became really difficult. And I was like, I wonder if that was that change in transit. So yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah. So it's, I think there's well, there's definitely, like, just even when I was looking over them, there's some just general areas where I'm like, well, I mean, I do see a lot of things that kind of where things were going on. But you know, the big shake up, interestingly, with Uranus, and we're looking at March 2020 to April 2021. My mother's cancer came back in March 2020.
Oh, and the whole world locked down.
Yes. And the whole world locked down. But see, interestingly, because I think of March 2020 and the first thing that comes to my mind is my mother.
Of course.
I sort of went, who cares about your pandemic? I've got this other thing I'm worried about.
Yeah.
And that was a huge focus for us until September easily, but still she's been recovering the whole time from what she went through. And then it's, so, I mean, I've come out of part of that.
And midlife continues. You've got your next one coming up in the next couple of months, and then you'll be through.
Yeah. I do know that looking back at the Saturn return for when I was 28, interestingly, I just moved into August 2006. I just moved into a new apartment with somebody, and a friend came to visit. And when that friend came to visit, her husband was also with her, and he had a health crisis while he was staying with me. And I just moved into an apartment. I was doing a bunch of stuff with my PhD, and I went into full-on anxiety when I suddenly had somebody basically sleeping in my room, because I was sleeping on the couch while they were visiting me, and her husband had this health crisis. And I was like, you were supposed to be with me for 3 days, and now it's looking like weeks because he's not feeling good. And I can't do this. I can't live my life from my couch in the current situation.
No.
And the friend was in her own world of panic, understandably. But when I tried to talk about it with her, it just didn't go well. And the outcome of that was her basically being very angry with me for a very long time. And that period in terms of feeling like that was the worst I'd ever felt to that point about my own ability to handle a crisis and to talk to somebody. So I think it did, like, for a couple of months, every morning I'd wake up and it'd be the first thing I'd think about. And it would be on my mind all day, and I would feel wretched about that situation and how it went down. And I just could never figure out what I could have done differently.
I've had experiences like that. I know what you mean.
Yeah. But and when I look at that, I think somewhere around October, November, it started to fade, which is when those dates are there. Right. So in terms of that, like being switched on to something and then having it almost like a switch almost go off, and then it just doesn't feel the same after that.
Yeah, because some people, Saturn can go quite quickly, like it's going to for you with your opposition in the next couple months, and it just kind of like zooms over. But for your Saturn return, it kind of went over, and then it turned around and like retrograded back over. And I can't remember if it was back over or it just kind of came into that area before it zoomed off again. Yeah. So, the planets.
Yeah, but I was interested too, just that when you said that thing about like mine really don't overlap, and my whole chart is the astrologer that I go to always says my chart is like a straight shot. He said you can always see what's coming with you, and that happens a lot where things line up really cleanly. There's not a fuzziness or a ton of different signs or planets all together at the same time making a mess of things.
Yours is quite spread out, I think a little like mine. I think we've looked at our charts together and gone, oh, there's some similarities here.
Yeah.
Mostly our ascendant's the same.
Yeah. But so when you said that, I thought, oh, there's another example of how I have sort of a straight shot through. Things don't muddy the waters too much between. I was like, you're going to do this one. Then when that's over, then you'll do this one. We're going to be very clear about this.
My astrologer, she said to me, well, and I think it's a generational thing. So you and I and anyone else around midlife would be somewhat similar. And in terms of having the outer planets, and we'll include Pluto with this, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto all in separate signs. So when there's a challenging angle from another planet to one of those, the next one will be harmonious. The next planet will have a harmonious aspect, and then that third one will also have a challenging. And then when it's it depends on a lot of things. But it's also true for people who are younger and older, because I think all of us have unconscious planets within a 15-year kind of plus or minus. Let's say 1980 for ease of use. Everyone has a subconscious planet in one sign and then another one in the next sign. So it means that we kind of take turns having challenges in one facet of life, while something else has a harmonious influence that we can use if we learn how. And that's what I'm in the midst of learning is how can I use those influences, because they are influences, and we can. Well, I guess that's a debatable point. Like, I can think that I can use the influences, or I can feel that I can use the influences, but who knows? It might, like, the whole of life might be premeditated. And as a nice camping topic of conversation last week was, it's all a computer simulation, was my friend's view on it. So, I mean, gosh, who knows? Maybe we'll find out one day.
Yeah.
Cool. So coming up for you, apart from your Saturn opposition, you've got, when's your next 6-week course? Have you scheduled one coming up?
I'm looking at, it'll be in February, like end of February.
Oh, great. So that's perfect timing for when this will pop out into the ether.
Oh, great. Good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's 6 weeks, and we meet once a week. So it's only one call a week.
Cool. So that's your urine therapy course. And then in April, May, or June, like watch this space. You'll be launching your year-long course that uses UT, urine therapy, and Dalian Method.
Yes.
And other tools likely, because I know you're really into oracle cards. I bet they make an appearance.
Yeah. Yeah. And teaching people these 10 Ayurvedic and yogic habits, but they're really designed for today's people. Like for the modern lifestyle, so that everyone, you don't have to go and study in an ashram to learn these. You can learn them and integrate them. And it's just wisdom. It's human wisdom from a long time, and they make such a difference to being able to have energy, digest your food, have good relationships, be conscious of what you want in your life, move yourself forward, have energy, be in integrity, all of those things, sleep well. It's
that's
just
so exciting. It sounds amazing.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it.
How do people find you?
So my website is expansionhealing.ca, expansion EX. And on Instagram, I'm Expansion Healing. And on Facebook, I'm Expansion Healing. And my email is Megan, MEGAN, @expansionhealing.ca.
Great. And we'll make sure we've got those in the show notes too.
Yep. And if you come to Prince Edward Island, you just have to ask around because everyone knows everyone here and they'll find me real quick.
Yeah, that's true. Small places
Yeah.
are nice. Like nice. Well, there's mixed bag of having everyone know you, but Oh, thank you so much for your contribution to Unraveling Midlife. What a fascinating couple of topics. I guess listeners, stay tuned for more on Dalian Method, which is incredible, but it's been really fascinating for me, who already knows a bit about the Dalian Method, to learn more about the urine therapy. And I look forward to checking out your website and maybe some of those books. Maybe I'll even try myself.
Hey,
listeners, let me know how you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And reach out if you have any questions. And Sarah, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for letting me chat with you and your listeners for a while.
Today's track is a little ditty that has been appearing as part of the Dalian Method work I've been doing over the last month. This method really has been life-changing for me, and the joy that has been bubbling up inside recently just kept bubbling over and just needed to be released to share in a song that I would wake up with it over and over in my head, which is such a lovely way to wake up when you hear the words. This is a first iteration, and I dare say there may be a different version that appears in the coming months. So here's a gospel-like version of I Feel Joy Within My Soul, recommended for singing along.
I feel joy, I feel joy, I feel joy within my soul. I feel joy, I feel joy, I feel joy within my soul. I feel joy, I feel joy, I feel joy within my soul. I feel joy, I feel joy, I feel joy within my soul. It's joy, I feel it bubbling up from deep inside. It's joy, I feel it, on its wings I glide. I feel love, I feel love, I feel love within my soul. I feel love, I feel love, I feel love within my soul. I feel love, I feel love, I feel love within my soul. I feel love, I feel love, I feel love within my soul. It's love, I feel it, encompassing from my heart. It's love, I feel it, inside is where it starts. I feel joy, I feel joy, I feel joy within my soul. I feel joy, I feel joy, I feel joy feel love, I feel love, I feel love within my soul. I feel love, I feel love, I feel love within my soul. I feel strength, I feel hope, I feel peace within my soul. I feel strength, I feel hope, I feel peace within my soul. I feel joy, I feel joy, I feel joy within my soul. I feel joy, I feel joy, I feel joy within my soul. I feel joy, I feel joy, I feel joy within my soul. I feel joy, I feel joy, I feel joy within my soul.
Unraveling Midlife is brought to you from Aotearoa, New Zealand by www.sarahmarlowspence.com. Theme music is by Sarah Marlowe Spence and Sarasvati Marie Willis, and art by Samantha Hepburn.